And I love to see your elementary school teacher side come out, because educators are clearly a huge part of the work we do here at Read Across America and with NEA. So as a former teacher and as an author you see both sides of how students engage with learning and how to create, work that helps kids, learn and understand their histories. What ideas or advice do you have for teachers who want to think outside the box and spark, interesting and engaging conversations about reading, particularly as reading, both for political and digital reasons, is starting to, be seen differently in classrooms?
The thing that I engage with a lot with readers when I go into classrooms and do school visits and things like that is that even though some kids may not consider themselves to be readers particularly, all kids are storytellers. They all have something to say. They all have something to share. Something has happened to them and they want to tell their friends about it. They want to tell their teacher about it. They want to tell somebody a story about something. And I think that's a great place for teachers to start. Teachers can start with kids just telling a story and then having kids write down that story and then seeing how then that story can then be shared because it is written down and somebody else can read it and then have the same story, even though they weren't there for like that first telling of it, right? And then you can talk about how you make the story really exciting, because when somebody is telling a story, they're going to be excited about it, especially if it's a story that they really particularly like, and they're going to make different kinds of word choices that they might make if they had written it down. So when I was a classroom teacher, actually, one of the things that I did to kind of help my kids who didn't feel like they could write a story down right away was I would have them just speak the story out and we would record it. And then they would go to writing it down. And that was a great way to get them into it, and also a great way to get somebody else to then read the story that they had told. So I think that's, like just appealing to kids' natural need to tell you a thing that happened is a really great inroad to getting kids to read stories, or even just have them read a story and like absorb that story and then tell somebody else that story, because then they really know what that story is about if they know that they're just going to have to like close that little book and like tell the story to somebody else. And they are kind of amazing at it, actually. They like really get into it, and like their retellings, like you can tell like what's like really important to them and what part of the story is like less important to them, but they like super get into it and they're super good at it.
I love that tip. I think it's like, I just think the best thing about these conversations is how much as authors and as educators, we are starting to believe and value kids' stories. Like, I just feel like at the beginning of my experience, I felt so doubted. I felt so alone. I felt like, being in a space, like trying to be in the space that I was in, felt like it was everyone treating it like it's such a surprise that I might have like a complex thought or idea about the books that I'm reading in schools. And I'm like, I am one of millions of kids that is thinking this right now. And to hear you have, great tips and advice for kids to be able to tell those stories, because one day that story could lead to a book drive. It could lead to a campaign. It could lead to artwork. It could lead to a movie. We don't know. And teachers' role is to sort of open up those possibilities and to give kids the tools, in accompaniment with their caregivers to be able to tell those stories.